Today, we're diving into the psychology of video games, how and why they affect us mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Video games are no longer just entertainment. They shape identity, behavior, and even brain function. In this presentation, we'll break down the different psychological effects video games can have, both positive and negative. Before we break down the psychology, let's look at how huge gaming really is. Over 3.3 billion people worldwide play video games. That's nearly half the global population. The average gamer spends 6 to 10 hours a week playing, which is not very far off from how much time we spend driving, which is 10 to 11. Gaming isn't just a hobby anymore, it's a mainstream part of life, which makes understanding it more important than ever. Here's what we'll be covering. First, we'll get into why video games are so addictive, and then go on to explore how players form online identities. We'll look at the benefits, like skill development, and dive into the brain chemistry involved, especially the serotonin boosts that are involved. Then we'll examine the more controversial side, like the link between violence and video games. And finally, we'll look at how games impact development, and especially in younger players. First, let's dive into why people are so obsessed with video games. They're designed to be deeply engaging. They give players clear goals, constant feedback with a sense of progression, things that naturally motivate us. Whether it's leveling up, beating a boss, or completing a quest, each step gives us a mini reward, which keeps us coming back. This ties into something called the self-determination theory, which says people are driven by autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Games let us make our own choices, improve our skills, and often connect with others online. Next, let's talk about brain chemistry, which are the neurotransmitters. When you play and achieve something in a game, your brain releases dopamine, a chemical linked to pleasure, and reward. Over time, your brain starts to associate gaming with feeling good, and that reward loop becomes a habit. It also connects with serotonin, which affects mood. Some people turn to games as a form of escape or emotional regulation. This can be used as a coping mechanism more than just fun. Then there's the gambler's fallacy. This idea is that a win is due soon, especially in games that use randomness like loot boxes or chance-based drops. This creates a rush, almost like gambling. That uncertainty, the feeling that the next try might be the big win, can be really addictive. It's part of why people keep playing, even when they know the odds aren't in their favor. And finally, the sunk cost fallacy. This is the idea that because someone has already invested a lot of time or money, they feel like they have to keep going, or else all that effort will be wasted. Even if they're not enjoying the game anymore, quitting can feel like throwing away all the progress they've made. So they stick with it, and that just pulls them in deeper. So overall, it's not that games are fun. They are engineered to hit our psychological triggers. From brain chemistry to emotional investment, there are real science-backed reasons why so many people find video games hard to put down. Psychologists have found that there are typically 3 types of avatar creation styles. First is the projection type. This is when someone who may feel insecure or dissatisfied with themselves in real life creates an avatar that reflects their ideal self. They might make their character more attractive, powerful, confident, basically who they wish they were. Next, we have the exploration type. People who are already pretty comfortable with who they are often use avatars as a way to explore other different identities. They might create characters who are the opposite of themselves, different gender, personality, or even species, just to experiment and have fun. Lastly, we have the proximal type. This is when a player creates a character that looks and acts very similar to their real-life self. These players often treat the game world as kind of an extension of reality, rather than an escape. Interestingly, the way people create their avatars can also help psychologists identify internet gaming disorder. For example, people who constantly use projection-type avatars spend excessive time in game might be using gaming as a way to avoid or cope with real-life issues. In the end, avatars aren't just digital characters, they're personal expressions, whether someone is escaping, exploring, or reflecting. The way that they build their in-game identity says a lot about who they are in the real world. Now that we've looked into psychology, the psychological pull of video games, let's flip the perspective and talk about how they can actually improve real-life abilities. One of the biggest areas where video games can help is in physiomotor control, which basically means how well your brain coordinates what you see with how your body responds. Action games like Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty are fast-paced and demand quick reactions, precise aiming, and constant visual attention. This sharpens the player's hand-eye coordination, reaction time, and spatial awareness more than in people who don't play games at all. According to research from the University of Toledo, video games can even be used as a form of treatment for people who struggle with hand-eye coordination, like stroke patients or those with developmental delays. They found that regular game activity improves sensory-motor performance, which could translate into better performance in tasks like driving, sports, or even certain jobs. Solo games are often dismissed as a waste of time. Studies are showing the opposite. They can be used for tools for skill building, even in medical or therapeutic settings. One of the most controversial topics around video games is their link to violence, especially in younger players. Repeated exposure to violent content in games like shooting, fighting, or aggressive behavior can cause players to become desensitized. Over time, violence becomes normal, and players may become less emotionally responsive to real-world aggression. This process, called acclimation, basically the more you see violence, the less shocking or serious it feels. According to the University of Michigan's Youth Health Prevention Center, violent video games can influence behavior through something called observational learning. This is when players, especially children or teens, watch violent actions in a game and start to model that behavior in real life. The more realistic and rewarding the violence in the game, the more likely someone is to internalize it as an acceptable or effective. Now, to be clear, video games don't alone cause violent behavior, but they can be a contributing factor, especially when combined with other influence like home environment, mental health, or social pressure. Still, it's important to recognize the potential impact, especially on developing minds. So while not every gamer is violent, constant exposure to violent content can reduce sensitivity and influence how players see aggression in the real world. This is why understanding the psychological effects is crucial, especially now.
Video games, we also have to look at the gender difference in video games. More often, men start playing video games at an earlier age. They play more often and spend more time playing video games, and games are often centered around boys' interests, attention spans, etc. They're more often centered because that was like the main population for video games, and they catered towards the greater audience. And then for girls, they start at later ages, they play less often and spend less time playing. Although in recent years, the number of girls in gaming is increasing at a rapid rate, but this has also caused less research on girls in gaming, including preferences, including like modifications, stuff like that. They're underdeveloped or they're very stereotypical. And then we're going to go into the developmental aspect of video games throughout a child, preteen, teen, and young adult. So starting off with children, often children are in video games that are very like simple, and it can focus on reading and following directions, and then they can also work on problem solving with like short and easy tasks. It kind of can build their confidence in a fun and engaging way. And then when you go to preteen, it can work on social skills, teamwork and leadership, community and identity. In social skills, a lot of the time teens are still like, especially preteens, are going through like very awkward stages. It gives them time to like talk to people without having to worry about being judged, and gives them like a safe space to do such. And then for teamwork and leadership, they get to experiment with being a leader and guiding teamwork and guiding their team into victory, and also works on teamwork where tasks are split among multiple people in a group and they all work together in order to achieve a common goal. And then for community and identity, a lot of people find community in video games that they really enjoy. They create friends and they create communities and bonds with those people. They can explore different identities, for example, the exploration types, and they can really express themselves in the best way. I know this can relate back to COVID-19 when a lot of us were trapped in our house. A lot of people went to video games and created like these communities and expressed themselves and still got that social interaction that was very much needed during that time. And then as we go to teens, a lot of teens use video games as stress relief, multitasking, and flexibility in thinking. When people get busier, having something that you used to either play during childhood or pick up like newly and fresh, it really helps relieve that stress, being able to do something that you enjoy. It helps with multitasking, be able to do multiple things throughout the game. And then it gives flexibility in thinking. So instead of always seeing one thing as a one straight path, it gives you opportunities to look at a bunch of different other options. And then as a young adult, it can help express creativity and give young adults outlets to express that if other places aren't letting them. And it also can maintain social connections. When life gets overwhelming or busy, it's easier to hop on a game than sometimes make plans and stuff. And then here are some of the statistics that we have on how video games can affect your daily life. So we're going to start off with 85% of teens report playing video games, but only 41% of those teens report playing video games daily. Along with that, 41% of teens report video games affect their sleep negatively. And then we have 41% of teens report being a victim of cyberbullying through video games. And that's going to be our presentation. Thank you so much for watching. And then here are the links to our APA citations.